So I guess we can get started if you have your questions pulled up. So today
I
we'll be
do.
today we're going to be going over Shiren the Wanderer 5, which is actually Shiren the Wanderer, the Tower of Fortune and Dice of Fate. Um, the title is very descriptive of the game. Doesn't pull it's not pulling anything on you. It's very literal. You are climbing the Tower of Fortune to get the Dice of Fate. So there's no trickery there. It pretty much tells you what's going on. I've got this banner here. It's got uh, Tanuki Mario. It's got a real Tanuki. And it's got Tom Nook, who is a Tanuki in Animal Crossing, which is a good series, but not a game. No, it is a game. Anyways, so it also got a picture of my son Arthur there. I put his portrait there instead of Sharon's little pet ferret, who is Sharon's voice, because Sharon is a silent protagonist. He's just there to look cool. He's got a straw hat on. Um, but you can see my baby there, Arthur, he is taking the place of the ferret, and he is saying some Japanese words. Um, I put that in there because I played most of this game after my son was born, and he was probably laying on my lap 90% of the time I played all of this game. And I probably played this game for about, I don't know, 100 hours or something like that. Um, so this is a Baby Arthur game, whereas a few of the games around this time are Baby Arth games. So Baby Arth is ingrained in the games. That's why I put him in the banner. So, because we can get started, unless you have any questions about the banner. If you don't, I'm going to turn the banner off, and I'm going to turn the please wait off as well.
I have a question about the banner.
Oh,
Can you bring the
okay.
banner back? I have a question about the banner.
Yes,
I have quite a few,
yes,
to be
yes,
honest.
yes. I will put that back on.
Okay, so like, what is around Arthur's neck? Is that a beard or a bib? Is that a bib?
That's his scarf. It gives him +6 agility.
Okay, he looks like a bandito, man, like a bandero. Oh, that's awesome. I like his scarf. Uh,
I like
is
that
that a
picture of him because he
Tanuki?
looks. I don't know. His expression is just very.
No, he looks very good. He looks very good. I mean, he looks like I'm sorry, he looks like a grown man in that picture. He looks like a really funny, like 23-year-old man is what he looks like. I can see that the
Yeah.
Joker he's gonna be at college. Like,
Yeah.
um, he's gonna be really funny. I can't wait to have conversations with him. And then that's about it. That is a real life Tanuki, right, in front of Tom Nook. I'm assuming that's what that is. He probably said
Yeah.
that, and I'm not.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is.
Um,
And you can see here that in my picture there, next to the banner, when I take the banner off, there's a raccoon and there's a tanuki. Those are very two different things. They're not related, so they're not equal. All right, they're different things. And we will go over that in the course of this stream. So, um,
cool.
yeah, where you going?
Okay. Well, let's get started. Part one. I've done my questions in sections. Um, So part one, Harbinger of Sorrow. That's a reference to Metallica's Harvester of Sorrow song, which came out probably around the same time at least one of these Sheeran games came out. Um,
Possibly. Yeah.
or or it's all about the Nuki, right? Which is my reference to a Limp Bizkit song that also came out in a decade where there were probably some good Sheeran songs. So that was my creativity for the evening. I'm gonna give it away to you, man. Tell me about Tanukis. And if you can, without mentioning Super Mario 3, because I feel like everyone already gets that, but maybe you have something that we don't know about that game. So you can. I was more so joking. I did say in my notes though that I will kidnap
Mm-hmm.
Arthur if you tell me too much about Super Mario 3. And I'm
Gotcha.
being funny, but at the same time, there's so much Tanuki and other stuff. Like you did a really good job of like bringing out how like okay, it's not just Mario. Like I talked about Tanukis at school like one day. I can't remember why it came
Mm-hmm.
across my mind and one kid in class like Mario 3, right? I'm like, yeah, I like Mario 3, but like also like 20 other things. And I like that you chose such a strong Japanese nature symbol to like delve into, and I learned a lot in the process of reading this. So yeah, tell me about the Tanuki stuff.
Sure. I don't want to talk about the game first, but we can talk about Tanukis if you'd like. Um, So tell me about tanukis. Okay, so tanukis are uh, what we call Japanese raccoon dogs. They've been around for a long time. Hold on. Can we pause this for a second? I gotta put my daughter to bed. Is that okay? Yeah, I
You're fine.
apologize. All right, I will
It's
cut.
okay. Oh, he's back already. How you back already?
All right, I'm back. So
How did you do that in 2 minutes?
she's like
I thought
10
that
years
was
old
a,
now, so she doesn't do
it
the
don't take as
story.
long.
She doesn't do the story anymore, and she just wants to be told goodnight now. She grew out of the
Oh
stories. I used to tell her a story every night.
no,
Just made up random
no.
stuff. Usually it's like stolen from games that I was playing around that time or TV shows. I would just rework the names of the characters and just tell her a story based on that.
Yeah.
I'll probably do that with Arthur
Oh,
when he gets older. Anyways, I think the game. I think I should explain the game a little bit before we get into Tanukis because there's a lot on Tanukis.
mhm.
As far as the game goes, so again, this is Shiren the Wanderer, the Tower of
Hold on,
Fortune.
hold on, hold on, hold on. Let's be clear. I want the viewers to know. I'm going to let you do this. But I do want the viewers to realize that you asked me 3 times today for questions. I gave you questions. I said, do anything you want me to do to the questions? Are they good? You said they're good. I ask one question and you say, I'm going to answer a different question. It's really totally fine. I just want the viewers to realize what kind of person you are before
Yeah,
we get started, right? So tell me about the gameplay,
thanks.
please.
I'm not going to tell you about the game. I'm going to tell you about the gameplay. I'm going to tell
Or
you
the
about the
game.
game.
Sorry, the history of the
Okay.
game. That makes sense. Yeah,
So
go
the
ahead, because I
history
didn't
of
know
the
about this.
game for all the people, you know, that lawyer he told us that we need to put the good stuff first. And if people come to the video expecting us to be talking about Shiren the Wanderer, they need to have that up front, or they will not watch. Okay, I've learned
That's
that.
fair. That's
Okay,
fair.
I've
That's
learned
fair.
that from a guy on Reddit. Um, anyways, so Shiren the Wanderer this is the fifth Shiren the Wanderer game, and it was originally released on the Nintendo DS in 2010. And it was ported a bunch. It's pretty much ported to everything except PlayStation and Xbox because those consoles are trash. You can get it on Switch, Vita, Steam, Android, and iOS. And it's part of a series called Mystery Dungeon, which was developed by Chunsoft, who also developed this game in 2010. And Chunsoft is now called Spike Chunsoft. I don't know why, but they are. They make other games. They make this new series called Made in the Abyss, Binary Star Falling into Darkness. And this game is about little spelunker children who get brutally murdered by aliens and monsters. Their limbs get ripped off and stuff. They're like 10 years old. Very interesting game. There's also an anime about it. It's super gory and weird. Um, but that's kind of besides the point. Um, the first Mystery Dungeon game was a Dragon Quest spin-off called Tornico's Dungeon, where you played as this character named Tornico Taloon. And he was a character from Dragon Quest 5 or 4, I think. And he's like a fat merchant that literally no one liked. I'm sure if you like ran a poll for your favorite Dragon Quest character, he'd probably be the lowest on the list. So I'm unsure why they based a spin-off around him, but apparently it was successful, um, and it grew into the Mystery Dungeon series. And I think Shiren the Wanderer, the first one, was the second Mystery Dungeon game, if I remember correctly. So Mystery Dungeon games are roguelike games, and Shiren the Wanderer is the same. So roguelike games, I don't really they nowadays the term is used extremely loosely, right? You probably hear that from everybody, like, oh, roguelike, blah blah blah, this and that. But Mystery Dungeons probably come closest to the traditional roguelikes. And they're probably the most traditional that you'll find on the modern market, I would guess. So roguelike games are categorized by pretty much dungeon crawling, but the dungeon is random. Random stuff happens, random floor generation, so the dungeon floors are random each time you do it. If you die permanently, or at least you lose all your stuff if you die. Um, that's kind of what a roguelike is. Um, and they're also the ultimate, like, I'm 40 years old and I'm still cool because I know about these niche genres, roguelike, and I played Rogue when I was 20 when it came out, and no other game is like Rogue. Cool. There's a lot of 40-year-olds online who talk like that about roguelike games, and the original Rogue, which roguelikes are named after the original Rogue. It's like a badge of honor for
And
old.
I'll jump in for a second to add real quick. I think this is beneficial. Like my as a pretty, I hate this term, but as a like a hardcore computer gamer, um, like I know about Rogue. I've never played Rogue. I know about it. I've played roguelikes.
I've
If I
never
play a
played it.
roguelike, I don't tell roguelike fans that I played a roguelike because typically their response is like, "That's not a roguelike," and it's so freaking annoying. And they'll never explain to me what it is. They'll just tell me what it is not, and then tell me to go
Right.
play Rogue. So that's been
Right.
my experience with roguelikes. So yeah, I think you're exactly right about that trope.
Yeah, you're right too. So that's great because yeah, I don't use the term roguelike usually either because of the same reason. Some elitist online will be like, "Well, it's not rogue." This is like, "Well, it's roguelike." Well, no, it's not rogue, right? It's not exactly
Yeah.
the same. So that's about it for the game. So Tanukis, your first question was tell me about Tanukis. So Tanukis are what we call Japanese raccoon dogs, and they've been around for a really long time, but they're not actually related to raccoons. That's important. Despite their name, the Japanese raccoon dog is not actually related to the American raccoon, which we call the common raccoon. They're totally different scientific families. I think the Tanuki is a Canidae family or canine family or something, and then the American raccoon is part of some other family that starts with a P. Common raccoons are related to a bunch of weird, like goofball animals, like the kinkajou and the ringtails, which is kind of weird. And then the Tanukis are related to canines, like dogs and wolves and like some types of foxes. Um, so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the basics of what a Tanuki is. So they're not like raccoons. Don't get them mixed up. Know the difference, otherwise, you're going to offend somebody. And do not, also, if you're on Mastodon or Twitter, do not do hashtag Tanuki because it's just a bunch of furry art. And you don't want to see it. So don't do that.
I'm
And
doing that right now. How do I search the hashtag? I'll figure it out. I'm gonna do that while you continue to tell us about Tanuki. I
literally
want to
all of
see
it
that.
except my posts are furry art. So and they're all content warning because they're all explicit furry art. Um, so while you're doing that, the thing about tanukis that I like about tanukis is that in Japanese they're very important in Japanese lore, and the article goes over this in great detail. You can see here my original title here for the article is Brief History of the Japanese Raccoon Dog, or Tanuki Tales. And you can see their tails is spelled like a book tails instead of their tails, which is a very basic, very basic writing thing that I did there. Very
Mm-hmm.
elementary. Also, this article goes against all of our critics' advice. You can. This article just starts off with like 2,000 words of just stuff about Tanukis. Even though the article is slated as a Shiren the Wanderer analysis, it's actually there's more information in it here about Tanukis than there is Shiren the Wanderer, and it's all front loaded. So if you're interested in Tanukis, this article is probably good for you. If you're not and you just want to read about Shiren, you'd have to skip to the second half of the article or find the IGN review of Shiren the Wanderer, which I'm sure is really good because IGN writes really good reviews. Um, anyways, uh, the special thing about Tanukis is that in mythology and Japanese lore, they're known to be like magical, like lucky creatures that are prone to like mischievous and playful pranks and other behavior. Um, they're known to be like very lazy, kind of stupid, but extremely playful. Um, some other tropes about them, they have like what they say is they have like large eyes to observe the world. They've got fluffy tails that give them strength and agility. This is very important. They have very large balls or scrotum, which represents like wealth or something like that, and can do other things. Um, they have a large stomach, which symbolizes tranquility, which is I think a holdover from Buddhism, like the fat Buddha. Um, and again, they're depicted as playful. They're always smiling. They're inviting, like in mythology, they're inviting to humans. They're friendly to humans for the most part. And they're closely related to alcohol and getting drunk. So typically, in all depictions of Tanukis in art or media, a lot of the times they're going to have a sake jug or some sort of alcoholic beverage because they like getting turned and having fun because that's what they're all about. So that's kind of the background of what they represent. Um, the most important part is that in mythology, in Japanese mythology, they can shapeshift. So they're one of the very few animals that can shapeshift in Japanese mythology. You've got um, cats who can shapeshift a little bit, not very well. Foxes who are very good shapeshifters, and then you have um, Tanukis who are very good at shapeshifting as well. Um, and Tanukis are considered the best shapeshifters, which we'll get into later. Foxes are close behind, and cats can only transform a little bit. And then this kind of magic is seen in real life with this is probably where it comes from, or maybe not, but like with chameleons and stuff, that they can change colors. It's mentioned alongside Tanukis and stuff, like stuff that blends into things. It's very very interesting. So that's kind of the background on the Tanuki. They can shapeshift. They're fun. They're friendly, but they like to get into trouble and pranks. Uh, yeah, there you go. What's your next question?
Well, let me think about the Tanukis. You gave us a
Yeah.
lot of really, really good stuff there. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you hit it at the end. I was gonna bring us back to the shape shifting because I think that is, to me, just one of the more interesting traits of the Tanuki because shapeshifting really is not that like unique.
Mm-hmm.
It occurs like in Japan, and we'll get to this in a minute. They have the kitsune as well, and I see some of that.
Yeah.
But you have the Wendigo in Native American cultures. Um, I even feel like I got a question about this, and well, this is the next question actually. So, um, it seems like a lot of cultures have these. I call them bestial Lokis, right? Like these animalistic pranksters.
Mm-hmm.
I am having trouble thinking about examples from other cultures that are explicitly like an animal that shapeshifts. But I know things like the leprechaun is kind of like that,
Oh
and I
no.
feel
Yeah.
like pixies and sprites sometimes behave in that way,
Mm-hmm.
where they're playful. Um, and so, just getting outside of the game for a moment, this question was more just kind of like cultural or societal or philosophical. In that, um, I don't know. Do you have any idea why? I mean, I've got some ideas as well, but I was wondering if you have any ideas why multiple societies would be. Because this is not real, right? Tanukis do not really do this, assuming,
They
right? Maybe
do.
they do, but we can assume. Well, let's pretend for a minute that they don't. That we live in a weird world where Tanukis are actually just
Just normal
as they
animals, right?
appear.
Yeah.
Yeah, just normal animals. So in this fictitious world where the Tanuki is simply just that, a Tanuki, um, why would a culture be like, that's a shapeshifter? And I think to start you off, I think it has two possible kind of ways to go. One about the Tanuki itself, but the other way is more like what's going on in the human brain to attribute this kind of stuff to an animal, or to
Mm-hmm.
something mythological.
Yeah. So the Loki archetype. I like the wording of bestial Loki. I think it's a good wording. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, it's really good. So the Loki archetype, I think the Loki archetype comes from just like basic human nature. I would say like human capacity for greed and selfishness. Probably, it's probably based on some well-meaning and good-hearted fellows encounter with maybe some sort of shyster or sneaky merchant back in Booga Booga times, or Unga Bunga times, or whatever, or what have you. And I think ultimately all the gods like Loki or whatever are just probably manifestations of the human psyche. They're manifestations of those who create them, which are humans, and without prayer, they probably no longer exist, I would imagine, which is a common motif in a lot of fiction about gods. Like, if people stop thinking about them, they disappear. And I think that kind of ties into the idea of like, you're thinking about Loki all the time, you're probably a trickster and an asshole. And if you stop being like that, you probably won't like Loki as much, and Loki will fade from existence. Um, that being said, I don't think Tanukis are like Loki, so I wouldn't categorize them as Loki. I think foxes are characterized more like Loki. I think Loki has bad intent and is inherently like narcissistic
Mhm.
and how do you say narcissistic and very self motivated. Um, and you don't get that impression from like the mythological Tanuki. They're just more playful than harmful. They just kind of want to have fun and they just want to survive. And they do pranks and stuff for fun. I, they don't typically do it for careless self benefit. I would say. I think Tanukis have the potential to be like Loki esque, but I think they're more. I think Tanukis are more like kids that are trying to trick dad like into giving them candy. Um,
Yeah,
they might trip you, but they won't kill you for it. I feel like
yeah.
Loki might kill you for it, or he might cut your arm
I
off for
can go for
candy.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and I think that's right. And I also kind of I forgot about this character as well from English folklore. I kind of was conflating Loki a little bit. Some of the traits of Loki with the traits of Puck. I know you're familiar with Puck.
Yeah, Puck.
Um, so some of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think where my head went, and I really liked. Yeah, I really liked what you
Where
to
did
add
your
to it a
head
little
go? You
bit.
said something about your head. Where did it go?
Yeah. So when I was thinking about like why a society would do this, like I was thinking, and I'm going to talk about balls for a minute. I'm going to be thematic and talk about balls. I'm going to talk about my son. I have a baby son, a little bit older than yours. You know
Baby
that.
son? Yeah.
He's almost 2. And last night or the night before, we're laying in bed. He's laying in bed with me. I'm trying to get him to go to sleep, and he's like lifting his legs and like kicking me in my balls, right? Like lifting his legs and just slamming them into my balls, right? Just slam, just and I like take my hand a little bit because he's a baby, he don't know. So I take my
Mm-hmm.
hand and kind of put it above my groin, like this shape. And so when his leg comes down, instead of on my balls, I can catch it. I can catch his ankle. Right? Makes sense as a dad catching the ankle. However, my son then begins to take his leg and like move it around and try to get. So now I'm like, this is not an accident. My
He's
son,
doing.
that's almost 2, he's trying to kick me in my balls. However, I also know that my 2-year-old son is definitely not trying to kick his dad in the balls, right? So
He's
like my human
probably.
brain,
Yeah.
yeah, he's probably playing or just he's tired and restless. So like, but the human brain wants to find patterns. So like my human brain for a moment is like my son is fucking with me, and my son is kicking me in the balls. So I wonder to take that back to Tanukis who have the most gigantic of balls, right?
Yes.
The Tanukis, like I can see myself like I think about crows for a minute. Crows will like if you befriend a crow, it'll drop like little shiny things at like your door. And I imagine like 200 years ago, 2,000 years ago, if I had seen that crow doing that, I would think the crow was like trying to talk to me, trying to buy something from me,
Mm-hmm.
or like reward me. And it might in its own way, but not in the way that my like human head does. So I could see like some Japanese man 2,000 years ago, like maybe the Tanukis are just like hungry and they're eating, but like because he's a human being and he's got to ascribe meaning where there is none, he's like these Tanukis are conspiring against me, right? And then thus like folklore is born. And I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if a lot of that is just that human desire to find patterns in everything is like, man, this Tanuki is actually probably a shapeshifter. And then of course we're so obsessed with sexuality that of course we immediately start talking about their gigantic balls. Um, so yeah, I thought it was cool. Um,
I think the balls is good. You can see I pulled this picture up of the balls of the Tanuki balls. So Tanuki balls are interesting because they call it their pouch and they use it as they can use it to separately transform into different things. So like the Tanuki could transform into like a samurai arm, like a samurai armor or something, or like a samurai looking person, but they transform their balls like into the sword. Or if they're like a traveling merchant, they could transform their balls into like their merchant stall, um, so that they have a separate thing to transform to use as a tool. Um, and in this picture, this Tanuki is, I think, just smothering this man with his balls, just totally destroying him with them. So I don't know. I don't know what the symbolism is there, but I'm sure it means something. So yeah, go on. Yeah, go on to the next point. I have more on their balls and the transforming, I guess. So later on. So
I just looking as that was incredible. That image was just really, really striking.
Yes.
Um, I'm trying to remember. I had something in mind with this next question, and now I totally just don't remember. So I'm going to ask it, but I might not have anything to contribute because I cannot remember where my head was. I
Hmm.
saw some kind of relationship between the Tanuki and Kitsune, and it reminded me of something, and I couldn't put my finger on what it reminded me. And I imagine that kind of. I'm reading through it, trying to. So if you have any ideas about that, and you want to talk about it, you can. I'm trying to read this part again to figure out what because like they know about each other, right? Like they're rivals and they do know about each other, the Kitsune and the Tanuki. Like they
Yeah, I mean,
actively
ask your
rival each other.
question. Yeah,
Well, that
ask.
that was the question. Like, does it appear? Have we seen this kind of relationship in other media, other stories, other movies, other ideas?
Sure. Maybe. I think there's some things we can extrapolate. First, there's like a bunch of anime with Tanukis and Kitsune. I think Naruto has one, which I haven't really watched Naruto that much, so I don't know. But I know the Kitsune is a main like figure in Naruto, and I think there's a ninja who does something with Tanuki. So there's that. Um, First, I think we need to examine the differences between the Tanukis and the Kitsune. So I think foxes or the foxes, Kitsune, they're highly intelligent creatures, or at least they're perceived to be. But they're willing to do like really bad stuff for their own personal gain. They're like super powerful shapeshifters, but they require practice and dedication. They have to like hone their craft to do it. I think one of the key things about foxes, or at least how they're personified, is that they're pretentious narcissists. That's how I would classify them. They're very concerned about themselves. They're very concerned about appearances. A fox will master a shapeshift and a persona, and that will be their primary thing that they do. So Tanuki is very different. So Tanuki, they have less like ambition, but they have a more innate skill as shapeshifters. I think there's a saying in Japanese culture that's like the kitsune can shapeshift into 8 different things, but the tanuki can shapeshift into 9, or something like that. But the tanuki might not always care or want to shapeshift into 9 things. So the tanuki is more powerful innately as a shapeshifter, um, and they're more natural at pranking and trickery as well. Whereas foxes have to use their intellect to think things through and really plan stuff. But tanukis are lazy, and foxes are not lazy. And tanukis are more concerned with having a good time and like throwing parties with other tanukis. They're laid back comedians. So like you might think of a fox as a pretentious narcissist. I would think of a tanuki as like a laid back comedian without any pretension um, at all. And they are not out to prove that they're better than anybody or that they're the best. They're just better naturally, but they don't really care. They don't really recognize it. Um, it's kind of like an anime or a TV tropes where like the weak character, but they're like in certain parts of the show they're like very powerful and very strong. They have like a very innate skill, but they're super weak because they never train and they don't care to. But if they did, they'd probably be unstoppable. Like, I don't know. There are characters like that you can see like where they're. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but like
Well, I
weak.
have some in like Dragon Ball, right? Like
Mhm.
Beerus is kind of. I mean, and not with the shape shifting, but like Beerus and Goku to an extent are like more Tanuki like, right? Whereas Vegeta might be more Kitsune like. Vegeta is obsessed with competition. He is obsessed with proving himself.
That's
Um,
so interesting that you bring that up. So, um, yeah, hold on. I'll get into that in a second.
I think it's from a
No, it's
hashtag.
super.
You put a hashtag on the thing, and that probably stuck in my mind
Oh, that's
subconsciously. I
probably
didn't know
it.
if that was
Yeah,
a
yeah, you're
I thought
totally
that
right.
was a joke hashtag. I didn't think you were going to go somewhere with that, and then that was occurring to me as you were saying that.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. So, I think just to illustrate the difference even further. So, in this part of the essay, I put to illustrate this distinction between foxes and tanuki. Consider their differing approaches to stealing food from human villages. While a family of fox may resort to scheming and backroom dealings with humans, they might like shapeshift into businessmen or mafia type people and give them attractive deals, but they have hidden strings attached to the deals. akin to treachery of organized crime or a pact with a demon, a Tanuki family to get food is more likely to just transform into like an alien spacecraft or ghosts to try to scare the villagers away so they can steal the food. So the Tanuki are more or the foxes are more conniving, and they're arguably more evil. The Tanuki are just going to like play around and try to get the food. So I think that's a good distinction. So you asked, where does it appear in other media? And I'll get into that in a second. I need to get my glass of wine. Hold on one second.
You need to keep the box in your room like I did.
That's what I was.
I just twist the knob, man, and it comes on out like water. If he realized, I'm just gonna say it while he's gone. If he realized that Goku and Vegeta were the Tanuki and the Kitsune, that's pretty fucking smart because I didn't. I knew I had seen the relationship somewhere. That's why I wrote the question. But I think that's super interesting. So I'm excited to see where he goes with that. And it looks like he's back. So
Yeah, I'm
welcome
back.
back.
So I would say you asked where does it appear, and I would say probably everywhere in media. It's probably a just like a normal human trope, the rivalry between these two types of beings. Uh, and when I read your question, the example I wrote down was Dragon Ball Z, Goku, and Vegeta. So that's why I put that there. So Goku, I think, could be seen as a Tanuki with more innate skill than Vegeta, like just period. But Goku is more childlike, and he's way less pretentious than Vegeta. Goku, when Goku does train himself, which he does, which that's his main difference, of Tanuki. Tanuki probably wouldn't, but when Goku does train, he's always just better than everybody else. Like he's better than Vegeta. He's better than everybody else. He trains, but even if he doesn't train, he doesn't. He has natural skill, and he has a lot of it.
Yeah.
Vegeta is like a narcissist. He's a fox. He has some skill, but he doesn't have as much innate skill as Goku. He's ultimately always behind Goku because Goku trains, and he has to try really, really fucking hard to get to Goku's level when Goku does train himself. Goku or Vegeta has a lot of ambition, like a fox does. Goku has no ambition. He has some ambition, but it's not like Vegeta's. Vegeta has ambition for the wrong reasons. Goku is literally just protecting his friends and his stuff and his family. Vegeta's like, I just want to get powerful and kill people and be the best. Goku has a pure motive, like a childlike motive, and he's just innately stronger than Vegeta. And their rivalry, I think, could be seen as something akin to like, Tanuki and a fox. Other than that, you see it like literally in other places, like in Animal Crossing. You see Tom Nook is like the honest merchant in Animal Crossing. And there's another merchant named Red who is actually a fox who sells fake artwork. So he's like the antithesis of Tanuki, and you can kind of see the relationship there. I would say in American culture, we probably have like cats and dogs. I don't know. Cats and dogs are kind of like that. Like cats are seen as kind of narcissistic and selfish, where dogs are more playful goofballs or whatever. So
That's really interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, Goku and Vegeta.
I'm just trying to think of some others. I think it's really cool. I do think I'll add to the DVD for a minute.
Yeah, please do.
Because I brought up Beerus, and like I think like we see almost like that relationship like get transferred a little bit, right? Because like Beerus is even more carefree, even more like laid back, even more naturally powerful than Goku. And I think if I remember that part of Super right, I think that bothered Goku. I think for the first time, like I think Goku was like not let's say bothered, but like was really really like wanting to take him down. It's still in Goku's way. He's like, oh, I'm cheerful, happy go lucky. I'm gonna kill the god of destruction. Um, but I saw like that Tanuki trope in Beerus like get even more like exacerbated. Right, he's literally just sleeping for hundreds of thousands of millions of years, and then wakes up and wants to eat and wants to have fun. For a little bit. I have seen it a little bit in I don't know, Tom and Jerry a little bit, although Jerry isn't quite a fox, but or sorry, Tom isn't quite a fox, but Jerry is definitely a Tanuki, I think. Um, but yeah, that immense power that is only used to like fuck with other people. Um, almost as a
Mm-hmm.
weakness in the Goku argument, but I loved it. That's what I said when you were gone. I was like, if he compared Goku Vegeta on his own, and I think that's where he's going with this. I think that's very good. And then you sat down and immediately that's what you did.
Yeah, it's not
Um,
100%. It's not like 100%. I don't think. I think there are. I think you
but
could
they
pick it
never
apart.
are. But it's
Yeah.
good enough. It's good enough. It's not
Yeah.
worth picking apart because it's so freaking. It makes sense. It illustrates the rivalry, and like I bet the Tanuki and the Kitsune weren't the first example of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I dropped my headphones are connected to the television, but yeah. And so I just love talking about stories, and so sometimes I really like pointing out that like man, this thing you're looking at, you've seen before, you've seen recently,
Mm-hmm.
and you've seen a long time ago, and you're gonna see it again.
Yeah,
So the
they're
Tanuki
like
stuff was really interesting.
it's like what's come up before in our other videos is like these ideas are just floating around in the ether and waiting to be picked out, and they never go away. They've been with us for forever, and we just
Yeah,
keep
and this is one
applying
version.
them to
Yeah,
different things, with different
yeah,
names and shit, but it's all the same.
same thing. It's super cool though. It's something I like about being alive. Um, next question. We're going into part two now. I called this part the Shirens of Titan. That is a pun on Kurt Vonnegut's novel, The Sirens of Titan. And then like a little tongue-in-cheek question: aren't all dice fatal? Right? Because the dice of fate, just like to be like try to be funny in a pretentious way,
Mm-hmm.
like all dice rolls are chance. All dice are like fatal in that way. And then I hit enter by mistake, and now my questions. So like
So
I will do it briefly and let you elaborate. I thought it was really
before you go
brilliant
on,
the
my
way.
one question
Go ahead. Yeah.
is it Shiren or Sheeran? I always call it Sheeran. Is this supposed to be
I
Shiren?
I changed to Shiren when you said Shiren at the beginning of the
I
stream.
I
In
have no
my
idea
head,
how it's
I was doing
pronounced.
Shiren. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Because it looks like siren with an H, but like
Yeah,
it's a Japanese
that's
name.
probably right.
So
Actually, it sounds more correct. So yeah. Anyways,
I don't
answer the
know
question.
Shiren. I don't know. Um, but so yeah, the game. You talk about the way that the game. You've already mentioned. I forget the title, but it's something Destiny in the title. You climb the Tower of Destiny to
Mm.
get the dice of fate. Um, but it's like it's brilliant and it's also really basic at the same time. But it's I think it leans more towards brilliance. But like those kind of like generic names that are also like meaningful in new ways, right? And I want you. This is what I want you to tell me about is the way that, and I'm just simplify it and let you expand. But okay, the thematic like part of this, what there is of the story is fatal, it's fatalistic, it's deterministic. It's all about how does luck go, and it can be different. Deterministic is probably the wrong word to use, but all the rest of them apply. Uh, but at the same time, the game is all about the RNG, right? And like you made that point come across very clearly.
Hmm.
And this is where I can tell you where you can open up and tell me more about all that RNG stuff in this game.
Yeah. So I guess we need to explain how the game is. It's a roguelike, quote unquote. Probably not up to snuff to the true 45-year-old roguelike player, but it is a roguelike. You traverse a dungeon. The dungeon is randomly generated. There are multiple floors that are all randomly generated based on a specific tile set that applies to that dungeon. There's hundreds of different tile sets. The items you find on the floor are completely random. The monsters are somewhat random. Um, like early on in the dungeons, you're going to encounter like different types of monsters, but the placement and how many of them, um, what they're doing is all random. So it's a very random game. It's all RNG based. You could, for example, walk into a room and it could be a quote unquote monster house, and you could suddenly be surrounded by, I don't know, 50 monsters and pretty much just die. That's something that happens in the game sometimes, and that can happen within the first dungeon if you get unlucky or lucky enough or what have you. So the game is very random. It's all based on RNG, which is literally means random number generator, as far as I'm aware. Which I really don't like that term, random number generator. I think it's weird. I think everything's a random number generator, to be honest. Um, but you said absolutely brilliant the way the game uses Destiny in its gameplay and its world. So what I think is interesting about the plot of this game, it's very basic, like you were saying, but it's basically you're going up a tower called the Tower of Fortune, and at the top of the tower there's this god called Riva, who is the god of luck, and basically the story is like Shiren or Shiren or whatever, he goes to this town and there's this girl on her deathbed dying, and her boyfriend's like, "You have to save my girlfriend," and the doctors are saying, "Well, your girlfriend has an uncurable illness and she's going to die." And then the boyfriend says, "Well, if we just climb the Tower of Fortune and get the dice and talk to Riva, he'll grant our wish, and I can just wish for her to be alive." So Shiren, being a nice guy, I guess, decides to do that for him. And you can see in the gameplay right here, uh, going up the tower, that boy behind Shiren, he's got black hair and glasses on his head. That is the girl's boyfriend. He tags along with you for at least part of the story there. You can see him um, tagging along, um, trying to save his girlfriend with wishes. But ultimately, Riva, you have to gather all these different pieces of the dice. There's 3 different towers, and at the top of each tower, there's a dice piece, and you gather all of them. And then the final tower has Riva at the top, the god of luck, and you have all the dice, and you go up there and you say like, "Hey, I've got the dice. Can you grant my wish?" And Riva's just like, "Yeah, I'll grant your wish if you roll the right number with the dice." And you're like, "Okay." So you roll the right number, and it's wrong. You roll the wrong number, so Riva's like, "Oh, that sucks. Like, I'm not going to do it." And then Riva's like, "Well, actually, you know what? I feel nice today, and I am going to do it." So it's just all random. It's just all random shit happening. Just completely random. Like, the whole plot is random. The God of Luck, he grants your wish based on a whim, even though you roll bad dice. It's all there, and it's all RNG. The plot reinforces the gameplay in that way, I think. I'm done. You can go.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna skip the random question because I noticed we've been running like 43 minutes. I don't want to go much more than that, or I think, just because of time. If it would go there, if it's going good. But the next question was about. I was going to talk about just randomness in general, but we've had a lot of good stuff to talk to, so I'm going to skip that one.
We can talk about randomness. I
Um,
was interested in that question.
do you want to do that one? I might throw out the next one then, because I've seen we're only about halfway done, and I don't want to do this for. Not that it's not fun; it's that I have to go to sleep eventually. You can cut
Yeah.
this part out if you want, because it's all stupid, just routine, like having being an adult bullshit. But
Yeah.
that's the only reason I'm thinking about making some cuts because we've been with the
Fine. Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, yeah. Cut to whatever you want.
Just
It's
because I
important.
wanted, I just wanted, I wanted to make sure we had plenty to talk about, and I just didn't know how good some of the questions were, but they ended up being better than I thought. So I think it's a compliment, right? Like, we've been talking like more than I thought we would by this point, and that's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I did like this question. This is me trying to step out of the box again,
Yeah.
and talk about like just I'm not even talking about the game. Like in real life, I did say in the game or in real life, but like in real life, can something be random? So
Yeah.
what I mean by this, right? Like I go outside and randomly an acorn falls out of my hand. But like if I had the wherewithal or the acumen or the ability or the tools to really trace that event back to its source, I don't know if I would be convinced of the randomness, right? Like,
Right.
okay, the acorn, if I knew all the information, if I knew the wind levels and trajectory, it's not random. It's just that I'm kind of stupid or I just lack the information to like explain like where the events are coming from, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that was where that's what I think you understand it, right? Like I framed it in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, I think can anything be random in real life or in the game? So that's 2 different questions. In real life, I don't know. That's a super hard question, and I think that's an insane question. Can anything truly be random in real life? Um, I personally like from a uh, worldview kind of way or a philosophical way. I lean towards determinism more than anything, which is, as you know, it's the idea that nobody can really control their actions and that stuff just kind of happens and it kind of snowballs. And the reason I'm doing this today is probably because of thousands of other things that happened previously in my life that led up to this point. And I think if you were some sort of like super genius, you could probably determine what everybody does, I think, based on their life. If you had all that information and everything they've done, you could probably determine their next action. Um, so I'm kind of like, I guess, I don't know, fatalistic in that way. I don't think free will is really a real thing, but I operate on the idea that it is because I think that's more useful, and I think that's I think you'd go insane if you truly operate on a deterministic level. Because I think a deterministic level, like, you would be like, well, the murderer did murder somebody, but should we really throw him in jail because his mom was a crackhead, and his dad like killed people as well and forced him to watch and all this other stuff. So it's like, yeah, he had a really bad life, and that's probably what led him to murder people for sure. But we need to have rules and we need to have order, and that's why I think, yeah, that that way, personally. Um,
Yeah.
so, uh, can stuff be random in real life? I don't think so, but I could totally be wrong. I'm totally open to the fact that I'm wrong. Things could be totally random. I think this is what they call the concept of entropy, which is lack of order or predictability, um, which is just total disorder. In the game, I think you can program a game to get close to what we would perceive as humans as random. I think some games come close to it. This game comes okay, kind of close to it. I'm sure other roguelike games, come closer to it than Shiren 5 does. But you could program a game to be seemingly random. But I mean, when we get down to it, Shiren 5 probably isn't, you know, quote unquote random. It just seems random. It's still programmed in such a way that somebody who knows all the programming could probably figure out what's going on and predict what's going to happen. To a relatively good degree, but you would need to be really smart and have a lot of knowledge to do that. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. And I think it's a good comparison between the game and real life because I think the game is real life, right? Let me explain that. Like, I think you were awesome in what you said, the speed talking, because I have a lot of good ideas and I'm like, my brain is kind of struggling, but that's really
Mm-hmm.
cool because, like, the game the same way. Like, when you play it as a human being, it feels random. But if you had, like, the godlike acumen to dive into the code, it wouldn't really
Mm.
be that hard anymore. In the way that, like, speedrunners will speedrun Pokemon because they know how to do the start frame, and it's the same amount of time per steps on the square you can get the max IVs Nidoran, like 2 screens over from Viridian City. But that's really hard to do by yourself without like intimate knowledge on the back end. And that's the same in real life. So my answer, I think, would be this. I'm gonna take it away from that just a little bit, but like I've talked about Wittgenstein a little bit before with you, maybe a little bit of a lot. Not my favorite philosopher, really, because it's not as exciting. But I like sometimes when I think about answers, like try to really answer these questions. I think
Mm-hmm.
about him because like my answer would be that we do not understand what random is. We've defined it wrong. It's a
Right.
language problem, and that maybe random. What it really means is that as a human being, you cannot trace the cause, like with any kind of way that's valuable to you, right? Like maybe
Right.
it could be traced by like a deity or by
Exactly.
an
Yeah.
artificial intelligence, but random does not mean like completely unpredictable and not determined in any way. I don't think that's what it really means. That whatever that is might be impossible, but what we take to be random, because you mentioned it, I put 3 exclamation points. You said perceive um, as something. I can't read my handwriting, but probably random or something. But 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 yeah, and so I think in game or in real life, it's the same way. What we're trying to do in the game when they program like RNG, they're probably trying to program what they think RNG is, and and they think it's like true randomness, but they're not. What they're really programming is they're tricking you or me, right? Which is exactly what we perceive randomness to be because we think we're being tricked.
Yeah. I
Same
guess the
thing.
question would be like in Sheeran, let's say like you start a floor, you start a new dungeon, you just died, and you start over and you get into the floor. I don't know, like the way the dungeon's going to be set up is technically random, and I don't know how somebody could know what the game is going to pick if it's going to pick it randomly. You know what I'm saying?
If if you had access to the back end somehow and could understand how the code was written and then know what seed you were on, I bet you could do it. But that's like
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
that
probably.
it
Like
defeats the
Minecraft or
magic,
something,
though.
like the Minecraft seed or whatever. Yeah, or
Yeah.
however it works.
I'm,
Yeah.
however it works, because I and I'm not a computer guy at all, right? I think you've read this before too that like RNGs aren't like actually
Yeah,
RNGs. And so if computer RNGs aren't RNGs, I don't think real life RNGs are RNGs.
I don't either. That's why I
Like
lean towards the deterministic kind of mindset.
yeah,
But I like to believe that RNG exists because I think if you say RNG doesn't exist, then you have to. I think logically that leads down to a road that says that free will doesn't exist, and I prefer to believe that free will does exist.
I think it like doesn't, right? Like I think what it is, I think it's another misunderstanding. I think like the object of free will, right? The object of free will, I think, is embedded in mankind as like an experience of being mankind, just as the plant grows and just as the earth and gravity works. It just free will is just our experience. We've put words on top of it to like kind of describe this experience, and from that description, perhaps like this illusion of free will. I do not have any evidence to support this, though. It sounds like a grand idea, and I think it sounds cool, but I don't. I couldn't write a paper on that. That's crazy, right? I don't know.
I think the idea of free will to humans is like you literally can make your own decisions without any outside
Right.
influence, and everything you decision you make is your own. But like right now, for example, I could make the decision to just like I don't know, take 6 tabs of LSD and get fucked up for 2 days straight. But
Yeah.
I have to get up and help my child in the morning, and my wife would be pissed at
Ah,
me,
yeah. No,
and
but you're.
like
I don't think you're making a choice, right? Like I think what it is, you're not making a. You're not deciding against the LSD. You're just we're as human beings. We're always doing something, right? And
hmm
so you could say that you didn't choose LSD, but that doesn't mean that you chose. I don't know. When I choose to
I
pick up
chose
this
something
pen,
else. Yeah,
I don't know. I just don't think there is any other else. You're just gonna do. You're just gonna do. Our brain adds on because we're smart, right? We add on. I could have done this, but we're always just gonna do. If you're addicted to
we're gonna
cigarettes, and
doo
we've both
doo.
been there, we're gonna do because like I'm addicted to cigarettes, right? We were, and so
Yeah.
like I was thinking like, what am I gonna do in the future? Like I had a choice, but
hmm
I didn't. I just thought about the possibility of having this abstract choice that human beings like come up with. But really, there was what I was going to do or what I wasn't going to do.
Yep.
Or no, really, there was just what I was going to do, which was smoke some cigarettes, go back to vaping, go back to cigarettes, and then like get off with the patch.
I love
There was no
smoking
choices
cigarettes, man.
there.
I,
Oh, dude, I've been missing them a lot lately. I just can't. I can't. 'Cause I feel so good. I ran. I can run faster than the kids,
yeah,
man. Like I'm
I
in
feel a lot
such like
better
good
after not
shape.
smoking. I haven't smoked for about I think a year or so. So
I've been off completely since like February or March, so a little good deal after
yeah,
me. But
that's
like, I just feel
the thing I don't like about cigarettes is not. I love smoking cigarettes. I love drinking and then smoking cigarettes. It's a
yeah,
great time. Feels good. It tastes good. Um,
yeah,
what I don't like about it is when I'm not drinking and I'm trying to play a game or do something I enjoy, but there's always that thought in your head that's like, oh, I just smoked a cigarette, but I need to smoke another one in an hour, and that's always in the back of your mind. It's always nagging you. And I hated that. I don't like
yeah.
having that thought like constantly invade my mind.
That control.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
control like invade my mind all the time, and I just got tired of it. I was like, "Fuck this! I like
yeah,
smoking, but
yeah.
if I want to sit down and play Armored Core for 5 hours straight, I want to be able to do that without this intrusive thought coming into my mind. It's like, nope, you have to go outside right now and smoke a cigarette, and you have to do that
Yeah.
twice. I didn't like that. Um, so
I
yeah,
mine was like twofold because I quit smoking a long time ago. Actually. I quit smoking cigarettes. Well, besides when I did it for a month, like a year ago.
mm-hmm.
Um, I quit smoking cigarettes in like 2018, like early, but then I went to the vape like real hard, and so that's like 18, 19, 20, 22. Yeah, like so like 6 years of vaping, and so that was kind of cool because I could vape in my house and stuff. But I was like sleeping with it, which is like really cringe. I thought, and then like in my job, I don't want to mention. I've probably mentioned what it is before, but like at my job, not in a while, not
Mm-hmm.
in a very long time. But I was like vaping it, like at my job, like in the bathroom or something, a completely private one person bathroom, just for adults, hitting it like real quick. But that felt so cringe when I knew like some of the other like clients that work there would do the same thing. And I was like, I don't want to be compared to them. And people listening can just pretend I guard like a prison, right? Like that's about basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So like I didn't want to be like I'm the prison guard. I don't want to be like the prisoners that are like considerably younger than me. So I was like, I gotta quit this. And then I knew you did, and I've quit cold turkey before for like 7 or 8 months. But I knew I could do it again if I really tried.
Are you
And
the
like
Tanuki or are you the fox?
I know I'm Vegeta,
I need
dude,
to go
but
to the
I feel like
bathroom,
I'm
but keep talking. My bathroom's right here.
yeah.
So keep going.
Okay, guys, yeah, if you watch this, you'll find out. I think I'm Vegeta, but I think I'm a Vegeta who like is inside the fox. I'm gonna have to repeat this. I think, because I think you would find this interesting. Um,
I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, good, good.
Yes.
Yeah, I always like. I feel like I default to Vegeta because like I have intense jealousy that I don't ask for. I'm naturally kind of okay at a lot of things. So when someone's like better than me at something, I just want to like really like not to make them feel bad, but for me to not be stupid and feel worse about myself because I got some kind of like hang up that comes from somewhere. Because like I'm not like genuinely like mean jealous about people. Like I love people, and I do mean what I say when I support people, and you and specifically, if we're going to do the Vegeta and the Goku thing. Um, and as a kid, I liked Vegeta naturally, even though I subconsciously knew that about myself. Like I just thought like Vegeta was so. But you know what? I feel like in Berserk, and we've talked about it a little bit, but like I don't know, I kind of thought like Griffith seems more like Vegeta in Berserk, but I felt more like Guts than that. Not a lot, because like Guts is super cool, and I'm not. But but yeah, I always feel like I want to try really hard because I feel like I'm impressed by other people. Not because I want to put other people down, but other people impress me so much,
I get
and
mad
that
when I
not
get
to.
impressed by people. It makes me mad. So I think we're similar in a way. You described how I feel, and I think a lot. I think everybody feels that, but I think some people deny it and lie about it. That's what I think. But
Yeah.
you know, I have very narrow vision when it comes to other people. I think a lot of people are like us. So let's move on because we're almost at an hour. But it was a good talk, and I think really
Yeah.
good.
Oh,
So
and I
what's
just
your
want to
next
say,
question?
I want to say, like, I do think some worse people than us, like, do want other people to feel. And there's some people maybe I would want to feel, but never you, like, right? Like, never people that I love. I would never want them to feel bad because I'm good at something. Maybe like a jerk off, Like, that'd be
Hmm.
really cool to just get better than some jerk off at the thing he is. Um, but not the people I love. I just like for some reason I've been convinced by I don't know. Let's go move on. So yeah, maybe we do this one briefly, but like I hope I'm somewhere on the mark with this, but maybe I'm really stupid. I won't say the R word. Um, I've never played Mystery Dungeon, but the gameplay sounds like kind of, and I think I'm seeing it here in the gameplay. Like, is it like when you move in? Like every time you move one square, the enemy, if it's on screen, it moves a square, and
Yep.
then like kind of at the same time. So it
Yep.
is kind of like what I say there. Is that kind of okay? Or I have
Uh,
to say it out loud, I guess. Like you're moving your character one at a time, but through a dungeon, like with a goal, right? But it is kind of like almost like a strategy game in that there are the squares, the tiles, and that it's turn based at the same time. That was the
yeah.
connection I was making.
So yeah, the connection I think you made here was that the game, from my description, feels like a tactical RPG or a tactical JRPG in how you have turns. So I think it's an okay comparison. Um, in
What's
this,
the
of
differences?
yeah, so in this, of course, you only control one unit, and you move one unit at a time, and you move one turn at a time. I think the difference here is that the turns aren't in your face, and that's why I really like these types of games, or this one specifically. Um, the turns are kind of feel hidden, and you can see it in the gameplay here. You see how Shiren moves from tile to tile. There's a slight delay between each tile, but if you hit forward or up or down or left or right, he moves pretty much immediately. So that's something to note. In a tactical RPG, you would probably click on Shiren, and then you would click on another tile, and then Shiren would move to that tile. But in this, you're moving him tile at a time. It's almost action game like. So the turns are not in your face in that way. The turns are not marked on the screen. They're not saying like, "Oh, this is turn 20." The turns are hidden, but you can feel them if that makes sense, and you can kind of feel them in this footage as well. When you can see there's a slight delay when Shiren does a move, then you have to let the monster does the move, etc. Things aren't doing moves at the same time, and that's how a roguelike works. Like Rogue, I think, worked the same way, where your character would attack and then the monster would attack you, etc., etc. It's very RPG or Dungeons and Dragons in that way, and that's why Rogue and roguelike games are a subset of RPGs, I would say, because they do function on a turn-based kind of dice roll level. But the way that they do it in Mystery Dungeon and roguelike games is almost in real time. So the turns aren't in your face in that way. And when you hit the action button in this game, like Shiren attacks when you hit the action button. If it's his turn, he swipes his sword. Right when you hit the action button, Shiren swipes. So it's almost an action game in that way. Um, but right after Shiren attacks, you have to wait a second or so for the monster to attack you, and sometimes that can take a while. Not a while, but if there's 6 monsters around you, then it's like Shiren attacks, and then monster 1 attacks, and then monster 2 attacks, and monster 3 attacks. So you can see the turns kind of pile on each other eventually. Also, like a tactical RPG, the positioning is important. So if you position yourself dumb, you probably will die. Like if you get yourself surrounded by not thinking about how you're positioning Shiren, you probably die because you can't move through a monster. You can move around a monster, but if you're completely surrounded, you're not going to be able to move through a monster. So if you get yourself surrounded, you're kind of fucked in that way, which is the same as a tactical RPG. I would say in a lot of ways a tactical RPG is like this, but I would say a tactical RPG is probably more just like a normal RPG, which is why it feels similar to this, because roguelike games are an RPG. They're just kind of hidden in that way. If that makes sense. I'm drunk.
Yeah, it does. And I think, like, maybe I didn't word it well, but the way you worded it, I think I was understanding it. I wonder, what would you think about? Because I love the idea of the turn-based and the idea of the tactical strategy RPG being hidden, because it makes the game faster. Because one criticism of strategy RPGs is that that's not legitimate, because it's totally okay to be slower, but that it's kind of slow, right?
Right.
So I'm imagining, like, and maybe I don't think you've said you only control Shiren, right, in this game?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So look, like, what if imagine like a party of 3 that plays just like this, but maybe like L1 or R1 like changes to the other character. So it's almost like a troop in a strategy RPG, but a lot quicker because it's hidden and it feels, like you say, it feels action. Has any game ever done that? Do you know?
I don't know, but on a completely unrelated note, there's a lot of Pokemon games that are made by the same company that if you look at footage, it's kind of like that, but it's like instead of Shiren, you're playing as like fucking Squirtle. Isn't that crazy? I'm really very cool. Interested in playing those games. Actually, I haven't played them.
I got my DS right here.
You should play one of those and let me know what you think about it, because those games seem really cool. They're Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. It's the same company. It's pretty much the same game, but just Pokemon.
But if you can switch though, like that sounds super cool.
Yeah. What's your next question?
Let's check my battery's good. I was checking my battery. This is a good one. Yeah, maybe real quick. What's a favorite monster or a favorite attack animation? Maybe both. Like it seems like the graphics are. It not even seems like they are really cool. I like the animations. I see the little cape. See, like right there, like
how's the cape just like flowing constantly? Yeah, I love
that. All the little details, like. I mean, it's not all badass. I mean, some of the textures are like repetitive, but the character animations look cool, and some of the enemies I feel like look cool. So, did you have something you liked looking at or doing in the game?
No, I think you already hit on it. Like Shiren just standing there, like him just standing there. His cape is just like, you're in a stale dungeon with no wind. Like, and his cape is flowing epically, constantly. It's so cool.
Loving that.
Yeah, but for monsters, I think. There's 2 monsters in particular I really like, and they kind of exemplify the randomness of the game. So there's a nut monster that like looks like a nut, but you can throw a rock or an item at it, and it'll eat the item. And eating the item doubles its EXP if you kill it. So if you kill it, you get double EXP, and you can do it over and over again. Like you could potentially throw 100 items at this nut, and it could multiply its EXP by 100. But every time you multiply its EXP, there's a chance that it'll explode and kill you. So like, there's like an element of randomness to it where it's like, do I want to even throw anything at this monster, or like, do I want to throw one thing, or if I throw one thing, should I throw another thing because the chances of it blowing up are higher now? The randomness there is really cool to me. I like the nut. There's also another monster called an Induba. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's N''Dubba. Induba.
Induba, that's awesome.
And like, what this is it's like there's a lot of items on the floor in this game. If you pick them up, like let's say you have our herb that you find on the ground, and then like 10 floors later you need to use the herb. But like you go to use the herb, and it's like, oh no, this is an Induba, not an herb. It's like that Induba was being an imposter. He was faking himself as an herb, and you picked him up, and now an N-dub is attacking you when you try to use the herb, which is another level of randomness that I like. So those are the two monsters that I really like. There's one animation in this game that I like with Shiren. It's just a huge laser beam that he shoots, which is cool. Which probably isn't in any of this footage, but as far as an attack animation, that's it. Yeah. Next question.
And I wonder if, like, while you were talking about the nut, I was thinking about, like, that's what gambling feels like, right? Like, even when
Yeah,
I've gambled
exactly.
like in a video game, right? It's like this is gonna be good, but like it could be bad. But like
Yeah.
I need it, I want it. It's cool. It makes my experience better, in life or in the game. So wow, that's kind of, I don't even want to say cool. I think it's interesting. So next one, yeah, and like this might even translate. So like I'm wondering this next question about the Pokemon games now, like the Pokemon ones, because it might be the only bad thing about them, not high. How's the difficulty? Because like it sounds like these kind of games, like I've played a couple games that I think are roguelikes that people will tell me that they're absolutely not. And the ones I've played, were all fine. I've beaten some of them. Some of them I couldn't get very far in. Um, but some of them are like kind of really fun at first, and it's just like, man, I'm not good enough, and I can't stick with it, and it takes me
Hmm.
too long to get anywhere because I don't know how to get there. And some are like really cool. I mean, it's kind of random, but you get lucky often enough that like if you're good at games, like you never feel defeated or you never feel bored. So the question in 3 words is, how's the difficulty? How's that feel?
I think the difficulty depends in this game. So the main story can be difficult, especially if this is your first like Mr. Dungeon or roguelike game. And in my opinion, and in my experience, this was my first Mr. Dungeon and roguelike game. So early on, it was difficult for me, and I died a lot. But after you die like 20 times and you get frustrated, you kind of learn how to be safe. You learn how to exploit some of the game's systems and mechanics. Um, and at that point it becomes easier, and once you get a hand of it, it becomes easier. Of course there are still random things that can happen and you're unprepared for and you die, but you learn how to like adapt and kind of to exploit the game system. So I would say like the main plot is not that, the main story or the main part of it is not that difficult, but also with this game the main story is not a huge portion of the game. It's maybe like 20 hours if you're playing through it all the way. There's a lot of in-game after main story content that is a lot more of it. So in-game, there's a lot of brutal like in-game optional dungeons after you beat the main story that are like you can't come in with any outside items. It's more random. It's more dangerous. There's 200 floors you have to get through. You can't bring any outside items in. Um, so I mean, it depends. The main story you'll probably adapt to it, and it's not that difficult. Um, One of the things about not I mentioned not bringing in outside items, and that's because the way that you cheese Shiren the Wanderer is there's this item called redo grass, and I cover this in the article. But redo grass, what happens is if you die, you get to keep your items, and that's extremely important because, like your sword, for example, can be upgraded to like plus 20, and you can forge and fuse your sword with another sword to give it another property. So, for example, like you could get a very powerful sword, and then fuse it with a sword that um, hits 3 tiles at once. So now you have a sword that is very powerful and it hits 3 tiles at once, so you could potentially hit 3 enemies at one time. Um, and if you use this grass to keep your items when you die, essentially when you die, you get to keep your powerful sword that you've been upgrading, and you can use that immediately in your next run. Even though you start at level 0 every time you start a new dungeon,
Right.
you get to keep the powerful sword. So if you're up to date and you keep on top of using that grass and exploiting the game mechanics, you could have very decked out equipment at level 0 and just blaze through a bunch of the early stuff and keep going. But that makes it all the more interesting. Like when you fuck up and you forget, or you're drunk, like it's happened to me a few times. Like when I was drunk, I forgot to get the redo grass, and I lost like a plus 30
Right. I remember
sword.
reading that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
lost like a plus 30 sword or whatever, and it's just like, holy shit,
Yeah.
what am I doing now?
Uh,
Now it's like I'm at the beginning of the game again. you know.
Oh my god.
You know, and I have to
Great.
start over, you know. So it's like it's very cool in that
God.
way, and I really liked it. But yeah, so yeah, I think that kind of exemplifies it a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. And so in two ways, I feel like I've played three or four, but the two roguelikes I guess that I've only played that aren't roguelikes, probably according to 40-year-old men, are
Mm-hmm.
Dead Cells and Binding of Isaac. And both of them were just okay, like good, solid, like B plus, like computer games.
Mm-hmm.
But Binding was like probably more fun because it was like it felt like truly like random. Like there was none of that like saving kind of something a little bit, through runs and
Mm-hmm.
that I remember. I played it like 5, 6 years ago. Um, and like you would get better at like the action gameplay because it was like real action, kind of like Zelda top down. Also like kind of like shoot 'em up kind of. But you'd remember the bosses, even though the bosses came like randomly and the floors are random, and you might get
Yeah, and in that game,
um,
the experience isn't like in Shiren. You can keep an upgraded sword if you
yeah,
keep on top of it. But in a game like Binding of Isaac, which I know a little bit about based on what you've told me and what I've seen about it, it's like you just learn the boss and that's your upgraded sword. It's like, oh,
yeah.
I've just learned the boss a little better,
It's like a
and that's
it's
the
like a
upgrade.
top down.
Yeah.
It's also a top down like Gunstar Heroes, if I remember correctly. It's like a top
Mm-hmm.
down Gunstar Heroes with random because you can remember what power ups combine. I think, and
Mm-hmm.
the power ups where you get them are randomized too. So like you might know, hey, I'm really good with this combination, so I'm going to avoid this power up that you might have
Right.
picked up like the first 5 rounds. And I think I got through to the final boss like once. I didn't love it, but it was fine. I understood why people like it. And then the other one, Dead Cells, I don't fucking remember it that much because it was hard. That's why I don't like it as much as Isaac. But it looked cooler. It was side scrolling, and there was something. There was some kind of mechanic where at the beginning when you would die, like a certain amount or something of what you would start with would be there at the beginning. But that one I never beat because it was like I would get like to the fifth or sixth or seventh stage and I'd be hard. How do I do this? And it'd be level one again. Even with the level ups, I was like, I suck too hard.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that was great. Okay, I didn't get to reread the article, so this was published a while back, so I don't remember.
Yeah, it's published
Um,
well. Yeah, yeah.
and I should have just control F'd and looked through. So I'm really curious to answer this question. Are there Tanukis in this game?
Yeah, there are Tanukis in the game. So there are like main hub town Tanuki merchants that sell stuff, and there's also Tanukis that run the main town hub lottery, which makes sense. The random prankster lottery, and you like pretty much always lose that lottery, like almost every time. Um, and there are some like Tanuki merchants that wander around the dungeon. Tanukis aren't like a main part of this game. Um,
Right.
they're definitely not. It's just that's what reminded me of it. And while I was playing this game, when I was taking care of my newborn son, I was watching like a lot of anime and stuff. And one of the things I've seen this movie a bunch even before my son was born. And with my first daughter, when she was very young, I was watching this movie. But Pom Poko here, which is about Tanukis and about their shape shifting, and that's been playing while we've talked. So um, that's kind of what inspired this article, and I feel like this game is very Tanuki-like. So yeah, there are Tanukis in this game. Next question. Actually, no,
Uh,
no, 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 no. Actually, let me
no.
keep going on. So,
Yeah. Please go on.
I think this game is very Tanuki. I think it's important to say that this game, why this article is structured in the way it is, probably could have been structured better because I'm not the best writer. But the first half, and which is longer, is about Tanukis and their shape shifting and their randomness and their pranksterness. The second half is about the game, Shiren the Wanderer 5. Um, and the reason I kind of put these together, other than the real life factors and whatnot, were that I feel like this is a not a like forget about roguelike and all this shit. Like forget about these titles. This is what I call a Tanuki like game, and it's not a roguelike. It's a Tanuki like, and the reason that is because it's random, it's playful, and it's stupid, and the non-static nature of everything
Yeah.
in this game just feels like you're like when you walk into a dungeon, it feels like you're in the Tanuki's ball sack, and it's just shape
Yeah.
shifting constantly. The whole game feels like
Yeah.
that. It's just shape shifting with you and trying to fuck with you. And sometimes it'll give you like really good luck, and everything will be amazing. But sometimes
Yeah.
it'll just destroy you. and the ball sack will consume you and destroy you. And that's why I thought, this is more like a Tanuki like than a roguelike game. Um, Next question.
Yeah. And I felt bad because like I wanted to look through and like I'm gonna look so stupid like if it's in the game I didn't see it, but I looked through the article. That's why I stumbled last time you got
Mm-hmm.
to the question. But you really, I think I could go down more, but you mentioned Tanuki 68 times in in the article, which is awesome. The word Tanuki. But the
Nice.
first time I probably glossed over it. You say it's like why all the Tanuki talk, and you're like, well, because it's all about fate and all that really good stuff. And then you're like, yes, it also has the Tanukis in it a couple times because of like in the taverns and stuff. I wish I'd searched that harder, but that's good because I like that I added the question because it allowed you to like explicate on it in such an awesome
Mm-hmm.
way, right? And like I don't know if I get the hankering to play a roguelike, it's probably gonna be Pokemon Mystery Dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
But Shiren seems really fucking cool. Like you've made it seem like the question that I skipped was, is this game worth someone's time? And I can answer that, right? It seems like yes,
I'd
it
say
is.
yes. Yeah,
Um,
I would say this
yeah,
is
so
one of the
double
best
yes.
games. I would say this is one of the best games I've ever played. It's one of my favorite games ever,
Oh
to
wow,
be
yeah, that's a
perfectly
big.
honest. And I'll probably play
That's
other games like this in the future. I've just been focusing on other things, but I really
yeah.
enjoyed this game. I think it's really good. Um, I think the newness of each run makes it feel fresh. Like every time you play it, the gameplay feels like actiony, but it's an
Yeah.
RPG
But it's
underneath.
not. Yeah.
There's like a bunch of tactical depth involved. You have to think about every situation almost, even if it's simple. Sometimes if you think something's simple, it's not, and you get fucked over. And yeah, I don't. It's just a really good game. I think it's really really good.
Well, hey, I give it a two yeses out of yes, and I also give it a better than Final Fantasy 16 award just based on like the GIF I'm watching right now on the screen. Um, it seems
Thanks.
good. I like, and the Tanuki article made it all better. Last question. Um, it's really a demand. I need you because you mentioned something about the Android and the iOS, and like I'm interested in that. It's like I have that version, and my baby mama also have that version. So like, um,
Ghost.
can can you please name every difference between the Android version and the iOS version in extreme detail? And if you can't, then I honestly sort of feel like you didn't play this game across all consoles, right? Because to be capable of covering this content effectively, I'm really worried about your mental health lately and thought that this interview would be a good time to talk about why.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do a simple fucking thing like play the same game across all consoles and deliver a decent review like my other friends used to at IGN.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to regret my decision to write for this publication solely based on this one thing. So please, sir, you made the game
Right.
seem pretty good, but
Right.
can you tell me the difference, every difference between the iOS and the Android and which version I should buy for me and my baby's mom?
Sure. I probably can't do that. I don't know all the differences. Uh,
Are there any differences? Because I need to know. Because I need to know. Because one is
uh, so like the DS version has two screens and the dual screen. I
I
think
don't
there
have
are.
I have
I think there are more dungeon. I think there's more content in the Switch and the PC versions that was released later, and obviously the resolution is higher because because you can stretch resolution. And I think
but the Android is highest resolution on the Android, right? On the Pixel 5a would have optimal res. Can you admit that at
no,
least on camera that the
no,
optimal res?
no, I will not admit that. Why wouldn't a computer have optimal res? It's on Steam. So
You at least admit that it's better than a bad computer then, right?
yeah, depending on what you define as a bad, all my computers, yeah, it's probably better than all my computers. It also has touch controls on the mobile ports.
Would you say, can you admit on camera that touch controls are superior to tactile buttons?
Isn't techno buttons? No,
You won't admit that?
no,
But you believe that.
I don't believe that. I don't believe it. I don't believe that.
Oh man.
No, I
So
don't.
that's a no from him on the Android. I'm gonna give I haven't tried it out. I'll try it out on Android. I'll try it out on iOS. I'll play it on DS.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll probably play the iOS version. Probably
You
with an
can't play it
8-bit
on
though.
DS. I would have loved to play this game on the DS. You know why? Because
Wait, it's
it,
not on. I thought you said it was on DS.
it
Shiren Five.
is, but
Shiren
it's
Five.
only Japanese in the DS.
There's probably a ROM, like a ROM. And is there not a translated hack? Sure, I'm gonna look
Look it
for it.
up,
What's it
buddy.
called?
But I don't know.
What's it called? What's the subtitle?
The Tower of Fate and the Dice of Fortune or something.
Tower of Fate,
Shiren
patch,
5. The Tower of
DS.
Fortune and the Dice of Fate. And your mother.
Mm,
Got him.
it might not be. There's a. Let me see. It's Reddit
Why
post
would there be?
5.
There's been ports that are in English to other platforms, so that nobody would be like, oh, they would probably just be like, oh, just play the other one. You know?
I just thought maybe in between the times that they came out, I thought maybe it would have got translated before, but no, I don't think so. I guess there isn't a translated. I don't see one on. Didn't come
I
up
love playing on
easily.
the DS. You know, it has two screens or whatever. I really like that. So I would have really liked to play on the DS, but it's only in Japanese, and yeah,
What
that's
is
all.
Sheeran 4? Which one is that?
That might be the Wii one with it's all 3D.
Ooh, the I've Got in the Devil's Navel. No, that's on the DS.
I have God in the Devil's. I love it. Oh, it's on the DS. Okay. I love how specific these are. It's probably what the game's about. It's like we're going to the Eye of God and we're going to the Devil's Navel in the game.
And it's gambling, right? It's gambling.
And it's all gambling,
right?
yeah.
That's
The devil's
all
like,
gambling.
yeah. It's all gambling, yeah. What is the
Um,
3D one for the Wii? There's one for the Wii that's like fully 3D, and there's one for the Nintendo 64 that's 3D as well. Is it
yeah, I
Shiren
remember you
3?
telling me about the 64. Sheeran 3.
Oh, Shiren
And they're
3
like,
is the Wii
no.
one. Shiren 3 is the Wii one. It's in 3D. Yep.
Do you think
That
that's
was
good?
released in English. I mean, if it's the same game in 3D, yeah, it's good. You don't even question it. Yes, it's a good game.
He's
Shiren
got the
2
hat.
is Shiren. He does have that. Shiren 64 is Shiren 2, Shiren's Castle and the Oni invasion. Um, so that one looks really cool. The N64 one looks really cool from aesthetic point of view. Um, it looks kind of like the 64 graphics and whatnot. But I think we've covered all your questions. It's been 1 hour and 24 minutes. Somehow it's been longer than every other fucking video we've done about fucking
That's a
Shiren
good
and the
one.
Tanukis. I don't
Good one.
understand
That's a
how
good
that
one.
happened. But we had a good talk. I think we should conclude it here because my neighbors are
Yeah.
fighting and I can hear it. They're banging on
Oh man.
something.
Hit me up on the Discord with the deets. Right. Go outside. Don't smoke a cigarette, but go outside and stand there like you used to, and tell me what's going on
All right, I
on the
will.
on the Discord.
But it's been great. Thanks for everything. I enjoyed this
Yep.
session and I will upload it probably by tomorrow.
Oh hell
But
yeah.
next
Cool.
time we'll
And I look
do
forward to the next one.
something. Yep. All right.
Cool.
Good
Later.
night. Thanks everybody for
Bye.
watching. Bye bye.